Hey, Dave Melinda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you today. As you know, I scour the earth to find the best of the best. And I had to go all the way back to first grade for this. So I'm going to unpack that for you in a little bit, but I'm honored to be hanging out with Cindy Rosser from TTI Success Insights. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely.
Always hear great
Absolutely.
things about this.
Super. Yeah, I'm super excited. We are going to focus on two words, and they sound so simple, but they're so dynamic, and it's human potential. So before we jump into that, kind of fill the listeners in, the viewers in on your first grade experience. Take us back because you used to be a first grade teacher, right? So
Yes.
tell us a little bit about the transition, because I love talking about people's careers and how they transition from one place to another. You were a first grade teacher and you magically jump in and now you're involved in assessments and human potential. So
Yeah,
help us
it
understand
was
that
magic.
journey.
It is kind
Yeah,
of magical.
exactly.
I guess it is, and a little bit, in a way, kind of magical.
Yeah.
What happened to me in that I was a teacher for right out of college. It's what I went to school for. I even had a letter that I wrote to myself when I
Okay.
was in grade school that said I wanted to be a teacher. Something about it I can't explain. I just always wanted to do it.
Sure.
Well, 10, 12 years go by. And I just kind of started to disengage a little bit.
Okay.
It met a lot of my behavioral styles, which I did not know about at the time, but I was able to kind of command the room. I was able to, talk to parents, to children, make a difference.
Sure.
But over time, something was just missing. I couldn't put language to it. My husband got transferred for work over to Arizona, where the headquarters for TTI is.
Okay.
And so I kind of thought, hey, here's an opportunity to see what else is out there. I could
Sure.
have transferred to another school. I could have kind of, tried to pick up where I left off, but applied for the role here, actually took an assessment. TTI is an assessment provider that they wanted certain behavioral style they were looking for, as well as certain motivators. So they benchmark the job of a customer support person. That's what I came in at.
Okay.
And I met that. My personal one matched the benchmark, so they brought me in for an interview and got the job. Through my debrief, that's kind of when I figured it out, was that my motivators weren't matching the teaching job. I'm a high resourceful. We all know teachers don't kind of get the return on their investment that they're always looking for. And I think that's just what over time,
Sure.
it was a little bit slower of a disengagement. But this role met more of, both my behavioral style and my motivator.
Gotcha.
So I've now been here 9 years, 9-year anniversary here next month.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. So I want to, you laid a ton out there, so we're going to kind of wade through that. So Cindy,
Okay.
no, that's awesome. I love this. So
All
for people listening, it might have just clicked for you, because I wrote down 3 words that I think are really important. Something was missing. So if you're listening, if you're watching, and you're thinking that exact thing, that's why we do these podcasts every week, because we find these people that say, you know what, something was missing, or there's an opportunity that I want to try. And we just want to encourage you to try something, to jump in, and it's cool because some people, they put their foot in the water just to test it a little bit, and other people jump off the cliff. And there's no right or wrong way in your career. But if you feel like something's missing, then that's why we're here. I mean, that's why people like Cindy are here to help you with that. And so I want to ask you a real quick question here, totally, off topic or off script, but right on. If I came to you and said, Cindy, I feel like something's missing in my career, from a from the human potential perspective, from your perspective, what are some encouragement, or what do you tell somebody that is able to verbalize that?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's exactly what it is, to verbalize it or to understand it, um, is really to understand yourself. So I'd say that's really where it starts, is you can't understand your human potential till you know who you are. And
Wow.
a
Yep.
lot of times, we think we do. I'm in my 40s. You would think by now I would, have a good grasp on that.
Come on, you're
But it
not in your
really wasn't
40s, you're in your
until the
30s.
assessment gave me the language together, obviously, with the person going through it. I mean, the words
Sure.
on a page are impactful, but, pairing that with, the person going through it with me, asking the questions, is when the light bulb goes on. And it's kind of like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Um, so it gives you that clarity. So I really, like I said, it goes back to really, do you understand yourself? Because you could have that aha moment that, wow, I didn't realize about myself. Um, and if you do think you know yourself, ask somebody else, to clarify that. Hey, do you agree with this report? Someone that knows you pretty
Right?
well. And they might say, well, yeah, you kind of do that sometimes, when you're under stress or under pressure, things like that. So we all kind of,
And it's the interesting thing. It's interesting about that too, because my second book is on business blind spots, because you just tapped into something really important about knowing yourself. And then if you think you know yourself, ask somebody else, right? Because how interesting is it that we think we know ourselves, but realistically, yeah, there's some stuff that we really don't know. And that's what I really enjoy about the assessment. So, you were talking about assessments, you're talking about benchmarks, and you're talking about all these things. So just for the people that don't know about TTI, just help us understand a little bit about these assessments, and how do I know myself better, and just kind of
Mhm.
work through that a little bit if you could for us, Cindy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, we're not the only assessment provider out there. Assessments were created to help with kind of the common talent management issues, that were happening out in the marketplace. Um, DISC being kind of one of the oldest ones, the
Sure.
DISC model. It's a behavioral model that will kind of tell you what your communication style is. So that's kind of at the core, is kind of a good starting point. Products, and they've said, hey, my clients need this. They're looking for help with a certain problem. So we've created, additional assessments, the motivators, which measures engagement and, what drives you. We have a skills based assessment, stress quotient, emotional intelligence. So just a multitude of different pieces of information that can really dive into,
Sure.
problems, as well as address them before they get into the role. That's what the benchmarking does, is helps avoid that problem with getting the wrong hire, because you know who you're bringing into your organization.
Wow.
Um,
And I mean, the cost of poor hires nowadays is crazy, right? I mean, depending on what numbers you look at, I mean, I've seen astronomical numbers when it talks about, poor hires. So I can totally see that. I think back to, some hard questions that people have asked me in my life. And I think about like that's a tough question of what motivates you. I mean, I remember asking a guy in one of the disc sessions that I was talking to him about, and he said, what motivates me is my mortgage. And I thought, I mean, I'm like, I get what you're saying, but it's
yeah.
like, boy, if your whole life revolves around a piece of paper paying for a place to live, I mean, I'm hoping that there's more to this individual than that. But when somebody asks you, Cindy, what motivates you, what words come to your mind when you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, and I think what he meant was he probably wants to provide financially for his family, to provide them, a great life experience.
Right.
So, I mean, sometimes when they say those things, really at its core, they're really trying to maybe take care of their family, or
Right.
so that's kind of, it helps put that language to what it is that you mean.
Sure.
So obviously when I said I'm a resourceful person, that means I'm driven by, a return on my investment. Like I will work, work, work if I'm seeing somebody improve, if I'm training them, or if, maybe there's a commission at stake. Um, but I mean, it motivates me because, I do want to provide for my family. I want to have a future,
Sure.
I want to be in control of that future, and, finances, tend to drive that. So, it just kind of gives that language so you can kind of clarify.
Right.
Am I
Wow.
motivated by a mortgage? No.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And it just, I mean, and you bring up a great point on the return on investment. And I think that, we look for sales professionals. I look for sales professionals on a regular basis for clients, to help them on different things. And, if you're out there now and you're looking for a sales professional and they don't have the mindset of return on investment,
Mhm.
they're out there more like a librarian where they wake up at 8 o'clock or they start work at 8 o'clock and they work till 5. And their whole goal is to help other people. Not that that's bad. It's just that, without a financial return on investment, if there's certain characteristics that you want to build a sales professional with, or quite frankly, any job that you're hiring for.
Right.
And that's the benchmarking piece. So kind of, educate us on that piece, Cindy, because if I understand it right, if the job could talk, it would say, I need these things.
Mhm.
And so we take that list and then we superimpose it on the list of people that are interviewing for that. Is that kind of how that works?
Yeah, yeah, and I think it just teaches us not to generalize any role, whether it's a sales role, to say that they have to have a certain um, motivator or a certain um, behavioral style, because the
Yeah,
sales processes are all different. If that you are selling something that would really help somebody, that person might be driven to do that as well. So that's why it's critical to not just say, oh, every salesperson needs to be like this. Benchmark the specific role to to your job, to your culture, to so that it really fits in with the process of what that person is supposed to be accomplishing in that task.
gotcha. So how does that look mechanically then? So you get a group of people in the company that kind of lay out this job, kind of walk us through what that looks like if you could.
Yeah. So it's really kind of understanding, the role. Don't just say, hey, this was my top performer last year. She was, a superstar. So let's clone her.
Sure.
No, it's, really get down and have those conversations with a subject matter expert group, not just one or two people. If you can get three to four, really get the the ideas down, the accountabilities, talk through it with a facilitator, maybe somebody outside the organization, so that they can give you that outside perspective.
Gotcha.
'Cause sometimes when you're in it, you can't see it.
Yeah.
So we do have a patented process that can kind of talk through create the accountabilities, and then you use those accountabilities to create the benchmark. And then the
Wow.
candidates can compare. Um, you can use it for people that are already in that role too. If your team, if you're a leader and your group is maybe not accomplishing things and you can't quite pinpoint why
Sure.
aren't they accomplishing it, let's benchmark the sales role and take all the salespeople that my sales team I currently have, or any team, that's trying to accomplish something, and then you can say, oh, okay, this person, might not be as productive because XYZ. So it can kind of help identify some issues as well. So it can be used pre-hire or,
Oh, that's so
post-hire.
cool. Wow. So I think so, and I'm going to ask you this. If I'm good at something from a human potential standpoint, I'm good at something, but I don't like to do it.
Mhm.
What will happen long term in
Yeah.
your opinion, Cindy?
Yeah. I was reading an ADP, the Research Institute, did a study on kind of the workplace, and that if you love what you do, you will be like almost four times more resilient if you love what you do. How
Okay.
do you know that you love what you do? You're engaged, you're motivated. So if that's, if something is lacking there, then, that's where you might need to say, hey, let me take a step back. Let me take a look at, am I in the right role? Or is there something that can be tweaked, in my current role so that I can
Sure.
still, get my motivators across and then re-engage myself. So can you just kind of take a step back and look at everything? Um, so that could it could be a job change, or it could, like I said, just slightly tweak. Ask the manager, hey, could I move my office?
Yeah.
Whatever it could
Sure.
be. It could be
Sure.
something so small
Yep.
so that you could look out the window. That might, bring you more
Right.
energy and engagement.
Wow. So what about if it's flipped around? What if I like something but I'm not good at it?
Mm.
What do you think on that situation?
I guess it would depend on what it is.
Okay.
If you're not good at it and it's, something that's vital to your role, then again, you need to step back, reevaluate. Hey, is this something I can develop?
Yeah.
Um, and if my manager is seeing that I'm not good at it,
Right.
or you could be proactive and say, hey, I'm just not really good at this.
Sure.
I need help. I need development. So you could always then ask for that help. Hey, can I get a coach? Can I get some kind of a training where I can get better at it? So
Gotcha.
if you know it before your manager does, that's probably, better off.
Yeah. Easier deal, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think about that. That's a great point. I mean, I think personally as a coach that it's easier to train somebody that doesn't have the talent. It's easier to train them on their talent as it is opposed on their attitude
Right.
or their mindset or that. So where does mindset, because I hear mindset a lot, and there's so many different kind of thought processes out there, Cindy, about
Mhm.
mindset. So what's your thought when it comes to human potential and my thought process? Where do you
Mhm.
land on that?
Yeah, it kind of goes back to, what you were saying as far as if you've got the potential to be able to to change what you're doing or adapt, you're going to be that much more valuable. So yeah, it is switching that. It's a mindset is just, hey, I'm willing to do the work. Or said, I'm never going to get there because I just don't like doing that task. If that's something that's vital to your role.
Sure.
Um, so definitely I would say, a mindset being, are you willing to adapt or not?
And so in first grade, you must have had all these kids that said, I can't do it. I'm no
Mhm.
good at it. I mean, at that age, we're already
Yeah.
kind of predetermining our future. So, and I'm just curious from your perspective, if what you do in those type situations, because I'm just working with a guy that's a friend right now, and it's a situation where he's in a job transition. He wants to be in a job transition,
Mhm.
but everything he says is negative. I don't have the skills. I wish I would have did this earlier. I'm too old. There's all these
Mhm.
excuses, right? And I finally had to say, because sometimes it's a blind spot that people really don't know that they're, I want to say emitting that negativity, right? But from
Right.
a human potential, when you run into that, somebody that's, either down on themselves, they don't see their value, do assessments help that? Is it finding the right people to hang out with? What are some ideas that you have, Cindy, on that spot? If you were coaching me on how to get out of that funk, so to speak. And I know I have the
Yeah.
potential, but I'm just struggling along the way.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, so I'm sure you probably already did this with this individual, but yes, the assessment can give that outside perspective to that person because they're actually answering the questions.
Yep.
And then they're looking at, the words on the page. It's kind of that unbiased, hey, this is what you told the assessment.
Right.
And then obviously pairing that with the questions that you ask to make it a kind of a safe space to have that realization. It's not going to be able to measure whether they're positive or negative, but optimism is. one of the styles in the disc. So if they
Okay.
are on that lower scale,
Sure.
there's a way you can kind of bring it up and say, oh, is there a reason you're not as optimistic?
Sure.
So it kind of
Gotcha.
helps you pull that information, and then they can kind of have that realization on their own rather than you saying, oh, you're kind of negative.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't want to hang out with you anymore, man. You're too negative.
Well, and triads do help, if they allow you to bring that third person in
Yeah,
and, have that, you said, hey, is it okay to kind of share some of this information, whether it is
sure.
with someone they work with, a manager, or, a
Right.
significant other, someone that knows them pretty well.
Yeah,
Um, and that allows them to kind of say, oh, well, come up with examples, of how, if they had maybe thought about it in another way,
sure.
would there have been a different outcome if you had just thought about it in this way?
Right.
So
Wow.
yeah, definitely mindset again comes back to that. Are they
Yeah.
willing to shift their mindset?
And I think you bring up a good words or a good couple words of safe spot. Without that trust, I think it's really hard because if I don't trust you, and whether you're on my team, you're my supervisor, whatever
Mhm.
words work, you're my leader, whatever, right? But if there's no trust between us, Cindy, we're not gonna really move forward because I'm always got in the back of my head, I can't trust her. You have in the back of your mind, he's not trustworthy. Whatever it is, there's not that real connection there. So
Mhm.
how do you, from a team perspective, how do you get that trust to be built, in situations that you're involved with?
Yeah, I mean, especially with a lot of people having to work from home last year, still some people doing that. You're not able to kind of see, especially if you're working on a team, you're not able to kind of build that sense of the trust that translates more in person, kind of doesn't
Sure.
translate. But I think what kind of we did, and it's really kind of simple. It's just, have the leadership has to have the buy-in. They have to facilitate that and say, hey, would you like to grab coffee with me? Or whether it's a team, hey, let's do a virtual, just a virtual chat. And you don't chat about work. You just chat about how are they doing? What's
Sure.
going on in their life? So it allows you to kind of be more empathetic and kind of
Yeah.
say, oh, wow, they've got a lot of stuff going on at home. And I was just bugging them that they didn't get that report to me on time. Oh, maybe I can, cut them some slack. So it's
Sure.
just getting to know the individual, and kind of, you know, realizing that everybody's going through things right now.
Yeah.
Uh, and,
Empathy, right?
mhm,
Yeah, that's such an easy word to say. I have to say that's such an easy word. It's even easy to spot the lack of empathy in other people. I don't know about you, but I can spot it in other people all day. But I have this huge blind spot like that I have tons of empathy. And then I find out from my wife that I don't. And I'm like, man, I just, and I'm an open book. I try to be
yeah.
about that. And I'm like, that is such an area that I need to work on, and especially from a leadership perspective. If you can't understand, what your team is going through, if you can't, put yourself in that spot, try and get it, try and come alongside them, it's really hard. But from human potential perspective, I have this potential, and then somebody is like not critiquing me, but they're looking at me, and I'm hoping they're encouraging me. But at times they have to say the tough words of, yeah, you don't have what you think you have, or at least maybe not as much as you do. How
Mhm.
do you suggest that a team do that if they're in a team environment, and we have a team that might be struggling, there's a little bit of mistrust going on, there's certain people that may have it out for other people, whatever. How do you kind of build that,
Mhm.
team spirit, that team attitude? How do you guys do it at TTI? I guess, let me ask it from a personal perspective. You're all
Yeah.
working virtually. How do you do that?
We have channels of communication. Obviously, everybody's using Zoom. Everybody knows about that. But we have like a chat room that we have a recognition channel so
Okay.
that when somebody we felt, hey, they really did something for me that went above and beyond, we'll throw their name in there. Um, and everybody in the company can see it, and then everybody can comment. So we kind of keep that going,
Okay.
as far as kind of communicating, recognizing people's strengths and weaknesses. And again, it goes back to self-awareness. So if you can have everybody's buy-in on the team to say, hey, I'm going to look at myself
Hmm.
and realize that other people are going to be different than me, and I might need to adjust my approach to them.
Okay.
It's just going to make that team dynamic so much better. So instead of saying, hey, you need to do this assessment because you're not performing, or you're having issues, it's, hey, let's do this together so we can get better as a team.
Yeah.
While at the same time, you're uncovering things about that individual, and then you can look at it in a team analysis as well, and you can
Gotcha.
see the whole makeup of the team in
Okay.
one of our reports.
So you uncovered two more words that I love: self-awareness. So, in simple terms, because again, I'm you were taught first grade. I was my level sixth grade. So I'm like, that's where I live, right in that sixth grade area. But I think about, these merges on the freeway, and I think about how sometimes I look over and they need that extra 20, that the spot in front of me is so important to them. It's like life changing, right?
Mhm.
And it's, to me, I think that's like a lack of self-awareness. I mean, and I don't care about it. It just seems like, that's such a like a unique spot to see. If you think you're self-aware, but you are oblivious to everyone around you, you feel that you're always should be first on the freeway, whatever. I mean, that's where I think a lot of people, they live in that spot.
Mhm. Mhm.
So when you think of self-awareness, Cindy, what do you think of? What are some things that come to your mind
Yeah.
when those words, are brought up?
Yeah. I mean, that kind of seems like more of an example of social awareness,
Okay,
which
sure.
is our emotional intelligence, or our EQ,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
some of you listening, that's a buzzword. A lot of people, a lot of companies do that assessment, but it's understanding how your feelings and reactions affect others.
Okay,
Um, so I mean that if you have that self awareness, though, then social awareness can kind of come with that.
gotcha.
Uh, but I mean, what it really means to me is that you kind of know your strengths and weaknesses. Um, for example, I know that I can tend to ramble because that's my behavioral style.
Hmm.
So I have to take cues from other people and say, okay, it's time to stop talking because you're going on and on. So you're reining me in pretty well today. But it's just, having that, again, I know my strengths and weaknesses. I know when I can tend to um, go one way or the other, and I can adjust that
Okay,
at this point. Not before when I was a teacher, because
sure,
I didn't have this language. I didn't have
sure.
these words to now do it.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm thankful for that.
Wow, that's interesting. I would never have guessed that rambling would have been a word that you would have used, because I mean, I've known you for a bunch of years, and we don't, communicate a ton, but whenever we do communicate, you always seem to be very short and to the point, almost to the point where I'm like, okay, tell me a little bit more, so you're either doing a fantastic job of, reining yourself in, or it's just me. But, so from an outsider's perspective, I mean, I would have never have picked up on that. So you're doing a great job. If you're trying to, self-regulate yourself, you're doing a
Mhm.
great job. So, you
Thank
know,
you.
that's awesome. But I think, self-awareness is, to your point, Cindy, it's so important, because you now go into a communication, or you go into a meeting, you go into a team event, whatever, you go into something kind of with this thing in the back of your head to be watchful for. And I think, to me, that's what's the importance of self-awareness. And without that piece, we'll never really be able to move forward in our human potential, in my mind, because
Mhm.
you really don't know what you don't think you have a weakness, or you don't think
Right.
you have an issue there. It's always someone else, right? I mean, my
Mhm.
gosh, 2020 and 2021 are the year of blaming other people, right?
Right.
Wherever you turn, it's always someone else's fault. So I think that we could all, learn from that, the self-awareness piece. What other tips would you have for somebody that wants to kind of release their human potential? They think that they're good at something, or they're not sure what that means. What are some other ideas or thoughts that you have for people around the human potential piece?
Yeah, I mean, I know I keep talking about assessments. That's what we live and that's what we
Yeah.
do here.
Yep.
But don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to say, hey, I just kind of want to know this.
Yeah.
Reach out to, even if it's your manager or your leader, and say, hey, is this something that the company would be willing to do?
Right.
Or hey, get a coach of your own.
Sure.
Even if that's outside, something that you can do your own personal development. If it's not going to be professional development.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of different tools out there. I mean, not just assessments, but there's a lot of different
Yep.
tools and trainings out there. So just don't be afraid to do it. I mean, there's really nothing to lose other than either validating what you think you already know about yourself or learning something new.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think it seems like there's so many people that are afraid, I don't know, whether it's an assessment, whether it's coaching, whatever it is, there's people that just, they want to live with their blinders on. And, my parents always said there's three types of people that in this life. There's people that watch things happen. There's people that make things happen. And then there's people that don't know what's happening, right? And
yeah.
I just, I feel like the people that don't know, even if you're going to watch, if you're a watcher, if you're a sideline type person, I mean, for me, there's not a sport that I can think of that I'd rather be playing it than watching it. That's just me.
Right.
I don't criticize the people on the sideline. I don't be like, oh my gosh, I'm better because I'm on the field. I don't think that way. I do struggle with the people that don't know what's happening, and that's probably a personal development on my side.
Yeah.
But I think, like what you said, is reach out and ask for help. I don't know why that's so scary. I don't know if people got burned, if somebody got burned in the past or what, but it seems right now, you're safe to say you won't get something without asking. People
Yeah.
aren't going out of their way looking for something to do to help you, right? So it's kind of on you to ask. So,
Well, I know you have a lot of entrepreneur listeners as well,
yeah,
too, that, they maybe feel alone because, hey, I'm running my business on my own,
right,
but there are still, outside help you can get. Take a look at yourself first and how it's relating to what you're doing and how you're leading your business. So I think that's okay, even if you
yeah,
don't work in a large organization, it's still okay. You don't have to feel, like you're alone. There's other
right.
people that are in the same boat as you. Um,
So I'm laughing, sorry, because I'm thinking about like what people are thinking. We're going to get together in a room and you're going to tell me. Now imagine this. Okay, let's set it up this way. So if we were in a room together or we were on a Zoom call like this, and I said, Cindy, your first exercise is for you to tell me your deepest, darkest secret, right? I
right,
mean, that's what I think people are so afraid of is somebody's going to come into my brain and like see what's really in there, right?
right.
And people used to say, if you knew what was if I knew what was in your head, I'd never want to hang out with you. And the reality is, if you knew what was in my head, you never want to hang out with me either, right? It's kind of a same scenario.
Yeah,
But I think that's what's so safe about an assessment. I mean, it can't get any safer right now where you get a link sent to you, you click on the link, and you answer some questions honestly as you can, and you hit the finish button, and then some results come 40, 50, sometimes 60 pages about yourself. And there is in my mind, the foundation of your human potential,
hmm
right? If you don't know, or even if you think you do know, I learn so much every time I read my assessment. I'm like, oh my gosh, seriously? There's times, and I don't know about you, but I look at stuff and there's like, that's not me. I'm like, no way, that's not me, And I
right.
tell people, if you keep saying it's not you, one or two on your assessment, no problem, right? But if you look and you got to check your whole page is check marked, you got a blind spot issue. Something's going on there,
Yeah.
right? So if somebody
Yeah.
is in that spot, what's your suggestion if they are struggling with, understanding themselves? What is an assessment kind of the first place to start for you?
Um, I I can only say because if I had known this maybe years ago,
Yep.
my life, may have been different, may not. I just know that, once I did get to experience it, it just literally changed my life.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, that is something that we do hear quite often, um, is that it can be life changing.
Yep.
But I mean, it all does come from the development too. You can't just read the words and it's going to change your life.
Right.
You have to create that development plan. Again, pair that with whatever service or coach or whoever, whether it's a training. So that's really where it's going to be lasting is when you create that development plan. So
Yep.
whether it's a leader or whether it's a team, you know, you really got to put it into practice. Like you said, you look at your report, we've got a little snapshot that we all have it when we used to come into the office.
Yep.
We used to have it just propped up on our desk. So when people walk in, they know how to communicate with you. Oh, okay. I see this style. I'm going to be, I'm going to be quick and get out of her way because,
Yep.
she's a task doer. Um,
Wow.
just little things like that,
Yep.
that you can reference that.
That's so
Yeah.
powerful to do that. And I have to say, so if you're listening, I'm sure you've heard life changing many times, right? We've all heard it, whether it's a TV commercial for this toothpaste that will change your life or whatever it is, right? There's so many things out there. The unique part about this is you already are a certain way and you were created, you were
Mhm.
built that way. And we're not here to say the way that you are, you need to
Is good or
change.
bad. Hmm.
Okay. You need to do this better. You need to do this different. No, the reality is that you are a certain way. Find out, unpack that, piece about you, find out about it, learn about it, and then you're able to better understand other people. And I mean, this transcends, business. Oh my gosh, I wish we could do like a marriage retreat on Valentine's Day, that has the ways to communicate with your spouse and ways not to communicate.
Right.
I mean, I'm using those all the time around here, and I'm like, man, this really works. And again, it's not manipulation, it's just better understanding the person that you're with. So I think it can change your life, but it's not something that you have to, it's not like it's not changing your
There we go.
behavior. It's kind of changing your thought process, and I really appreciate that about that. And then that's where the human potential starts to expand and really starts to move forward. So how does as we start to come in for a landing on this, TTI is talking about people first. The background that you have is people first. So how does people first tie into the human potential piece? Where do you see those two kind of talking to each other?
Yeah. We, you probably hear this. There's, a lot of people a lot of organizations that kind of preach this, but it is actually, something that you have to believe in. You have to actually put the people in your organization first. We get a ton of, time off to have work-life balance. That's really important to our organization to
Mm-hmm.
make sure we have that ability.
Yep.
So it's finding out whatever, that organization values, but they really have to live it, and the people that work there really have to feel it. Um, so as far as people first, it's something that you gotta, you really gotta put it into practice. It's not something that you can fake.
So
But
I
then
can't
you'll
just buy the
see
button and be done. Can I just have the
the
people
that's
first button
easy, the
and then
that's
beat
easy
my
one.
horn and just be like really mean in traffic?
But that's really where you're good. Then the human potential, it just kind of naturally comes out because the
Sure.
people are happy, the people are engaged, they're motivated. And then that's kind of where everybody's going to be productive. They're going to be, again, just happier overall.
Sure.
So you're really going to kind of naturally see that potential grow in your organization.
Wow, that's so cool. And so I wrote my book, Growing on Purpose, because, and we made a connection between, an engaged team and a satisfied customer. There's a huge connection there that a lot of people miss. And I think you just brought that up. And I can tell you that statistics and research shows that a happy team equals a happy customer. And a happy customer equals more money. So if you're listening and you're all about, you're a results oriented, high D person, number one, you wouldn't still be listening because you would have turned this off after a couple minutes going, oh my gosh, I got a couple of nuggets and I'm out of here, right? If you did stick around, that's awesome. But I think that there's an easy way to kind of sum that up, and that human potential. If you're not happy in your job, like we talked about, and you're not engaged in that, then your customer suffers. And at the end of the day, there's three chunks to pretty much every business. There's the team, there's the customer, and the product or service. And I think that the product or service we set aside for a minute because that is whatever you do. Most people are really good at that, right? But to try and really create a team that's solid and trusts each other and has each other's back, that's where realistically, if somebody doesn't have human potential in their mind, they think, I don't have the potential, I'm not good, they're going to struggle on that team, right? And so that's where I think if you want to make more money and you're listening, it ties back to your team. And that's why people first is so important, because if you have an unengaged, unhappy team, we've all been consumers, right? We've all been consumers, and we all know that we've had experiences, whether on the phone or in person, and we've had a bad experience with a salesperson, a customer service person, whatever. And most times you can tie that into the fact that they are not engaged in their job. I'm fighting right now with a credit card company, and at the end of the day, Cindy, right now, they basically told me my business is not worth the hassle that we're in right now. So I said to this lady, I said, you know what? I would like to talk to somebody that can make a decision. You know what she said? She said, I've already talked to them, and the answer is still the same. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, right? This is like, I'm just like, oh, your human potential, your people first, your customer experience, none of this is really working. There wasn't empathy. Oh my gosh, sir, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. There wasn't any, how can I help you? It was just no, like a screen, right? And we won't get off into the customer experience stuff today. I just want people to understand that this happy team, it starts with really understanding your human potential. So what would your tip of the week be if we did a Cindy tip of the week for anybody listening on human potential? What would you really, to kind of nail this home for them, what would you say is a real, what comes to your mind when you think of tip of the week?
Tip of the week. I know I'm trying to think of all the different people that are listening, so I can there's different tips I'd give to entrepreneurs or different people listening.
Sure.
But I mean, I guess in its general sense is take a look at yourself first. I mean, you can't, like you said, you can't just be blaming, hey, I've got poor employees, or I've got a poor business plan, or whatever it is. Instead, take a look at yourself and see if you can do some kind of self improvement.
Sure.
And then other things will improve from there.
Take the responsibility, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my gosh, it's not, I mean, and I've talked with tons of sales professionals over the years, and more often than not, Cindy, they're blaming the economy, they're blaming the president, they're blaming the competitor, they're blaming the weather, they're blaming their company, they're blaming the customer. I mean, they've blamed everything, and so rare do I hear someone say, you know what, I'm not good at selling. I'm not good at this. I don't know what I'm doing, right? I rarely do I hear that. So thank you for saying, point inward. That's a really great place to start because it's super easy to blame everybody else, you know, and in all the conflict resolution training that I do, and when I sit with two people, one on either side, that literally can't look at each other, right? And I'm going, oh my gosh, how
Yeah.
did I get into this? The reality is that when the wall comes down is when true work happens. And so many people refuse to let that wall down. And I get it. If you're not able to let that wall down, that's another great reason for an assessment, because you get these pages emailed to you and you get to look at this in the privacy of your own heart, so to speak,
Right.
right? And you can look at this and, like you said, if you struggle with something, find the person you trust the absolute most in your life and say, hey, I'm going to give you the mirror for a minute, and I'm going to have you I'm going to allow me to look at myself and tell me, is this me? That's
Yeah.
what's so cool about the assessment. So I just
Yeah.
thank you for all the assessment work that you do. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
One last question before I let you go.
Mhm.
If for people listening that don't know you, what's one thing that you feel comfortable sharing that most people don't know about you? I already stole the first grade thing, so you can't go there.
Um, well, gosh, one thing.
And I don't care.
No, no. Um, well, I guess, I mean, I'm a twin. So I have
There
a
you
twin,
go.
identical twin sister. So that kind of has shaped me because she's kind of the opposite of me.
Okay.
So again, the assessments, I didn't need that to know that we were very different, but it helped create the
Sure.
language. When I had it, I was like, oh, that's why I'm this way. And that's why she's this way.
Wow.
Because there was a lot of fighting growing up. As much as we
No,
love
come
each other
on.
now, it gave me the tools.
Okay.
And so I think, again, something you kind of touched
Wow.
on
So
is
let me
that
ask you this. I said last question, but oh well.
that's right.
So if she was on here, like if you got off screen and she got on screen, would we be able to tell the difference?
I obviously think so, but a lot of people don't think so.
Really?
Yeah, they've been, we're identical. So yeah, she's got a little bit different hairstyle than me, like women have,
Sure,
but
sure.
yeah, we're pretty
Wow.
look alike, but
That's so
and
cool.
mannerisms are the same,
Okay.
but just the way we approach things, our behavioral styles are very different.
Wow. Well, I'm an only child, so I have no clue what it's like to have any siblings. It was always my fault, even when it wasn't my fault. So that's so cool. So Cindy, if someone wants to learn more about you or learn more about TTI Success Insights, wants to learn more about these assessments that you're talking about, whether they call me or call you, what's the best way for people to reach out to you and connect to learn more about this from you?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for offering that. Obviously, of course, if you're looking for the service or the solution, you go to Dave. If you're actually looking for information on the actual assessment itself, as far as if you wanted to offer this, if you're an entrepreneur that does consulting or you do coaching, and you want to be able to add these into your services to help release the human potential in your customers or your clients, then you can contact me. The website is the easiest way because that comes right to me, ttisi.com, or feel free to call the 800 number and ask for Cindy. I'm happy to chat.
So
I
like
work.
you control the whole website. Everything comes to you. Oh my gosh. See, I knew I had
we
you
have
on for a
good
reason.
we have good people.
You're in charge of the whole thing. I got it now.
No, I'm giving my team credit. We've got a good team of people, of web people that have made it very easy to get to me. But
Sure.
I do not know anything about the website. But yes, if you fill out the form, it'll get to me, and we can schedule a time that works for you to connect.
That's awesome. And you're also on LinkedIn, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, feel free to connect with me.
Awesome. Yep. All that information will be in the show notes. So
Oh,
this
perfect.
is so cool. So thank you. Oh my gosh. I took a bunch of notes. You always teach me something, and so I appreciate it. So I feel bad for all the kids that. Oh yeah, do you still see any of the kids? Oh, you don't because you're in a different state now. Do you keep in
No, yeah,
contact with any of them?
different state, and I, I don't think Facebook was around 10 years ago.
Oh, come on.
I mean, and if they want to look me up, I'd be happy to connect with them.
That's so cool.
No, I don't. I still have a lot of teacher friends though, so I get to hear.
Yeah,
Um, Thankfully, this year would probably have been one of the worst years, or 2020, to be
yeah.
a teacher. So I still give them tons of credit, and my heart always goes out to them. They have a hard job.
Sure, absolutely. Wow, awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, Cindy, for hanging out with us. We learned a ton. And again, I go all the way back to if something's missing for you, there are people out there that want to help. And Cindy's one of them. I'm one of them. There's plenty of people. Find somebody in your sphere of influence, that you value, that you can trust, that you can, ask to come alongside you. Most people are going to be
Absolutely.
honored that you asked, and most people are going to help you. And if not, call Cindy, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help. The assessments are a huge way for us to continue to put people first and continue to uncover and unpack your human potential. So we're going to have to do this again. Cindy, thank you so much for hanging out.
Absolutely. Thanks
And,
for having me, Dave.
it's 20 degrees here in Wisconsin, probably 75 there today in Arizona, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah. So I'm sure you're struggling through it. So hopefully soon we'll be able to get back out there and see everybody at TTI. And again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dave.
Take care.
Okay.